Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rocket Talk. I'm your host, Lawler, and with me is the one and only Doomsee. He's trading in his DFH powers and joining me on the dark side. It's great. I love it. What have you done?
What have I done? Don't tell Gibbs.
Gibbs is part of Rocket Talk too, so it's great. We basically consumed them. It was totally worth it. But if you guys have never been to Rocket Talk, if you guys haven't been here before, all the previous versions and stuff can be seen either on any major podcast app, RTS feed style, as well as on Gibbs's YouTube page, because he has a bigger audience outreach than I do, and reaching you guys is more important than me getting subs. So good stuff. But for those that are first here, never been here, Rocket Talk is a podcast where we discuss comparative topics in Rocket League, basically community involved, and that can be anything, whether it be recent updates, things that are important to whether it be us as a community or pros or casters or whatever it is, news, gossip, just things that are relevant or things that we can teach you guys about. So always really good stuff, usually pretty lighthearted, but there's generally a somewhat serious tone because the topics do matter to us that we are passionate about. This week we're going to be talking about, if you guys haven't seen, there was a recent update from the RLCS about auto qualifications for teams in the RLCS. First time that we've ever had that. The link of that and the big conversation about it is in the thread. I will also have it in the description in the YouTube video after this. But as a quick summary for those that are audio only, basically what got announced is that beginning next weekend for the regional championships coming up, so the top 6 teams in both regions, in North America and Europe, are going to be playing in a playoff kind of scenario. It's a single elimination best of 7. And the top 2 teams from NA North America and EU Europe are going to be automatically qualified into Season 4 of League Play next season. That means they don't have to go through the open qualifier. That means they don't have to play for 8+ hours that one day. They can just relax and then do their best in that 5 weeks of League Play. They also said that the World Champion, if it is someone that is not one of the top 2 seeds coming into the World Championships, will also get qualified. 2 important things with that. Number 1, if I can find it, Cloud Fuel mentioned it. Teams have to keep 2/3 of their roster. You have to keep at least 2/3 of your starting roster. That means that even if you have subs and stuff, that means say Northern Gaming loses Maestro to sad things and we can't see him play anymore. They have to keep at least Remco and Devo. They can't break up and start all over again like teams for some reason love to do in the offseason. So we will not be doing that. So that was the big one. The other one is if they do not maintain that, they do lose their spot, and then we just go back to the qualifiers and see who is the next one up, and then they get the spot. So good stuff there. But unfortunately, not all systems are perfect. Not all things are perfect. And Mr. Doomsee here had some thoughts, to say the least. Just a couple thoughts that took me a solid hour to read, in detail and discuss. So I figured what better way than to discuss it openly in a public forum for you guys all to comment and stuff. The nice thing is we will do a live Q&A at the end, so make sure you guys save all questions to the end. And if you do have questions throughout the chat, feel free to say them. If we get to them and use them as reference, awesome. If not, if we do miss them, make sure you save them again at the end. That is for the live broadcast only, so good stuff there. Gives you guys a reason to show up. So first and foremost, before we get into anything, Doomsee, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing this fine day?
As you know, I'm a little sick, dealing with it, but we can't let these guys down, so I'm here. I'm not worried.
Dedication, I like it.
Yeah, of course. I can't leave you stranded there. But for those that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about who Doomsee is in a couple sentences. Who's Doomsee? I'm kind of worried about your answer, but I'm kind of excited too.
A couple of sentences because I can rattle on.
Yeah, that's why I said a couple sentences.
I'm a guy who is played Rocket League since the beginning. I was one of the best, and I've stayed pretty good. And now I'm hovering around, but I still play competitively. But I mingle around, doing community content and my own stuff. So I guess I'm just I'm the Rocket League Battlecast veteran, and I'm a hardcore fan / player for the game. I think that's something.
Very, very well said. Well, we're not going to waste anybody's time. We're going to get right into it. So we've got some key points that we want to talk about, and we're going to elaborate. This is going to be more so me sitting back and allowing Doomsee to kind of express. I'll pretty much play devil's advocate for a lot of this and kind of bring in outsiding points and counters. We'll go over common arguments, and there's been a lot of discussion. One of the biggest arguments, which is probably something I'm really excited to talk about, is the casual fan base and how esports basically caters to them, per se. There's been a lot of talk about how auto qualifiers and stuff kind of hurt that, because it's basically giving the best an easy way in, even though that's a whole different story that just frustrates me hearing that argument, and we'll get into that later. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about the key points, things that Doomsee had in his post regarding why auto qualifiers are good and ways they can also be improved. So starting off, the first and foremost, probably the biggest thing is the open bracket and why it doesn't really work anymore. Doomsy, if you want to talk to us about that.
Okay, so the open bracket, right? Back in the day, it was fantastic. It was great. It was like, it did its job because there was a clear cut, like top 4 basically, and then there was another 4, and then after top 8, it just completely fell off the earth in both regions. So whenever the open bracket came for the first season, it was pretty much the top 8. But as it's gone on and on, it's now the pool of teams is getting deeper and deeper. So the top 16, for example, is a lot better than it used to be, and it's a lot closer as well. So in every season we've had so far, there's always been a team that really should be a top 8 team. Like, they've shown their top 8 team consistently, but they just miss out on that day. Whether it's due to like seeding, and like sometimes you'll get a bad bracket, or whether it's just because they have a bad day, they always end up. There's always at least one team who just gets completely destroyed, and it doesn't work.
Now, out of curiosity, so I've talked Cloudfuel and a lot of the guys at Twitch and Sinex help out with the seeding, and I can tell you last season, I'm pretty sure it was, out of the 64 teams that got seeded, 59 made it through to the top 64.
Yeah, that's fine. That's logical, right?
Yeah. So we have a pretty clear cut of who our top is going to be, and I think that's why I think you would agree that open bracket, even more so, isn't the route to go anymore. I mean, if we know who's going to be in the top 64 every single time, pretty much. Well, yeah, but if you know who's going to be, like, you know, it's going to be top 64 because you're increasing the pool. Like in 2 years' time, right? You might be able to say, "Oh, we know what the top 128 is." It's like, well, yeah, because it's like the skill is exactly, it grows and grows. Like, we knew what the top 8 was, then we knew what the top 16 was. And it gets easier to tell how many because it's the skill gets better and better for every team. Whereas before it was like from 16 onwards, it's just a big mess because everyone's kind of new to the game. They don't really know what they're doing. So that's why it used to work. But you can't just keep doing that over and over. Like, it's if it was 64 teams, right, going to in a league, which is stupid, then yeah, open bracket might work because you kind of know who the top 64 is. But we don't. At the moment, the top 8 is just like it's too close for an open bracket. It doesn't. That's literally just one reason for why the open bracket is stupid. Because if you're my theory is, right, if you're making a league, you've got to treat it as a league. Having like a qualification bracket to go into a league, so that league can then go into a playoff bracket, where that can then go into a LAN bracket. It's just like, it's so messy. If you're gonna have a league, have a league system where you have promotions and relegations, and you don't you don't reset every time through an open bracket, because it's every time. It's just like, imagine if, you know, Zentox, right? If they went through, but they got DQ'd. But if they didn't get DQ'd because they were allowed to play, right, they would have been absolutely destroyed in league play. And the reason why they got through, like, you can argue on, but this is hands down why they got through. They got through because Penta completely beamed it. And so then, because they beat their match, I think that's Red Eye, didn't they? It meant Zentox had to play Red Eye, and Red Eye were just like nowhere near as good as a team as they used to be, because they lost, mainly because they lost Rosette. So Zentox had a much easier bracket. Whereas if they played Penta, and Penta were playing as they normally would do, Penta would have just 3-0'd them easily. But because of that one day, everything went out of whack, and then some really like crap team went through. And it's like, yeah, it's good, but then the league play is just a big mess after that point. It's one of those things, like, it's tough because open bracket does really benefit those teams that play a play style that doesn't really work in league play. When it really comes down to it, and teams play the way that they're supposed to, in my opinion, the way that these teams get, I guess, lucky getting in through open bracket are the teams that are very, very passive. They're very defensive. They basically focus on, okay, just pack the box, play defensive, don't make any huge mistakes, and then counter. And even though, yes, that is a viable strategy and stuff, look what happened to Set to Destroy this season. They play a ton of defense, and don't get me wrong. Shout outs to Memory for winning defensive, savior guy who had like he had 3.28 saves a game. He averaged out to. That's not okay. And they went 0-7 for that reason. Like, they played too much defense. And it's like, yes, even though it does work in the sense of getting into league play, it doesn't promote the best, I guess, teams. I guess, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't.
I think so.
It doesn't really give us like the best. Like, the whole point of having the RLCS exist is to showcase the best teams in the world, period.
Yeah.
And when there's a system that allows flawed teams to get in due to this stuff, or due to just, one game or something not going in their favor or whatever it is, like, there should, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, that there should be a system that basically states, over the course of this much time, these teams have proven that they're the best. Over the course of time, not the course of a day and a couple hours. Because people's playstyles change from week to week. People have off weeks. It happens.
I mean, you were saying about, I don't know what Set to Destroy are playing like in the open qualifiers, but I know that Zentox, teams that usually squeeze in, so like Shoot and Go did the same thing, Summit probably, but they were Summit probably the best team that would like last. But these teams, they have nothing to lose. They know they're not expected to get through. So they just kind of go, the same way teams like Flying Dutchman and that lot and Precision, when they go to LAN, they're just like, no, sorry, Precision, they take 3. When they go to LAN, they're not expected to perform that well. They're just like, hey, you're here, great, let's see what they can do. So the teams that are qualifying for league play that aren't expected, they just go nuts. They go off the rail. They're like, screw it, guys, let's have some fun. So they have full confidence in their abilities because they're not worried if they make a mistake, because they kind of expect to make a mistake, if you understand. So when they're playing, they're just going for everything, and you can tell when you're playing. Team Solid did the same thing, actually, when they knocked us out in Season 1, Q1. They just go for everything, but they're just like really confident, and confidence is a massive factor in Rocket League. So they do that, and they're like, oh my God, we just qualified for league play. And now they're like, oh, okay, we really have to play well in here. So now they're worried too much about playing, and then they just don't play anywhere near as good in league play because they're thinking, oh, guys, we have a shot now. Maybe we could make top 6 or something, and they just overthink it, and then they just lose everything because they don't have the experience or the skill. They just had a really good day where they weren't worried about stuff.
Right, and that's not how it should be. That's to a T the problem. Like, because you have a good day doesn't mean you should be able to compete in a season for the rest of the season. Because then that team that does have that off day is now out for 3 months, and that's, I guess, a good way to bring into why auto qualification is necessary. Is if you're an organization, and this is probably the biggest argument, and if we're going to do RLCS, we need to do it right. Big orgs need to come in. We need to start sponsoring these teams with, and when we talk about big orgs, we're talking about the CLGs, the TSMs, the really big ones. For those that don't know, Iris was that big reason. Iris was going to make it. They showed clearly that in the off season, they were winning every single tournament handily. They're playing really well. They came in as the #1 seed, and they got seeded as the #1 team when it came to open qualifiers and open brackets, right? But the issue is they had a bad day, they tilted, and they lost. That sucks. They also not only lost their spot, but they also lost a potential sponsor of TSM. TSM was supposed to pick up those guys if they made it into league play. And for those that don't know how that kind of works with orgs, is when one big org gets involved, the rest realize, okay, I have to be involved, otherwise that's exposure I'm missing out on. It's something that these big orgs have basically solidified with power and with publicity, that when they get involved, things change. It's just how it is. The only one that's been, I guess, the opposite of that has probably been Vainglory. I just think Vainglory is a little bit ahead of its time. But there's a lot of big orgs in that, and their viewership is still, yeah, it's just, that's a different story. But big orgs like need stability, and streaming is probably the easiest way for players to do that. Is if you stream, that's constant viewer base for them, that's dedicated time that they get, their name on screen. But the other way is through teams that are guaranteed to make it back every single season due to performance. If I play well, why don't I get to come back? Why do I have to go through this whole open bracket thing? And that's from where players are coming from, is they find it very difficult that we proved ourselves, we've proved that we're a top 4 team or a top 6 team 3 seasons in a row, and now you're making us go through these hoops yet again. And there's a reason that as to why orgs don't want to pick us up. because there's no consistency in it. There's no safety, I guess, in it per se. There's no, I guess it's all risk for them, because if you do have an off day, well, you see it, they're out. I mean, it shows why auto quals are really necessary.
Yeah, they're 100% necessary. Because, I mean, we have almost everything set up for the big orgs. Like, our viewership is doing really well at the moment. We're growing. Like, we're doing, like, the viewership this season is already, like, so much better than season 2. We're growing. We've already got a very good viewership. We've got the money's there in terms of prize pools for RLCS. And yet, the orgs are just a bit, like, hesitant because they don't, like you said, if a team doesn't make it, they're literally out for, like, half the year. Because it's like 2 RLCSs, and you're just kind of, it's they don't want that. Like it just makes, it's business sense, isn't it? Like you don't want to like put all your money in something and then be like, oh, that was just silly because now we're out. Like what a waste of money. I'm paying these guys salaries for like 6 months and they're barely doing anything. They're paying like weekly Gfinities. Whoa, like
right.
Well,
which sucks because you don't want to. Obviously, you don't want to discredit. You don't want to discredit the community tournaments because the community tournaments are great. It's where we all come from.
Cool,
we all appreciate it. But the issue is like when like we clearly have the drive and the motivation for teams easily to find like a top 1 team through 16. Like we can easily fill 16 teams worth of competition consistently. The issue is it's really hard for these teams that are 9 through 16 to incentivize really competing in the off season when RLCS is going on. They're basically out of luck for 3 months against the best teams in the world because the best teams in the world aren't going to play in those tournaments. They're going to scrim and practice because RLCS is more important to them, rightfully so. So we need to find something that basically says, okay, it coincides with the RLCS, whether it be a part of the RLCS or otherwise, but we need some way to. And the reason why like the whole brand thing became a meme was because we were talking, and I was talking about like, we can't have auto-qualified teams without something to support it. Because if you have these teams auto-qualify, you're then going to stale the lower teams behind them, the teams that are 9 through 16 and above, because there's no incentive. They basically just sit there against the best competition. You don't get better playing against other teams that just don't add up. So we need to find a way to funnel these teams into the top 8 in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's why you started talking about needing whether it be a promotion or a relegation system, and why it's necessary. And I think it's because of that.
Yeah, if you're having if you're trying to prove consistency with the teams and make them, and you don't want to open qualifier, the best way to have teams prove that they're playing consistently and then be like, hey, we'll reward you with our RLCS kind of thing, is to have another league, a tier 2 league. And if you have that league and you perform well over the weeks and weeks and weeks, you should likely, the logistics of it is up to discussion. Like, who knows about that? But like, let's say, for example, top 4 from the tier 2 league, they've performed well enough. They've proven they were top 4 in the tier 2 league. They then can face the bottom 4, let's say, of the tier 1 league, which is RLCS, and then they can take up the remaining 4 spots for RLCS. So theoretically, right, and what it would likely be is after one season of the tier 2 league, once the top 4 of that and they play and they find out the next top 4, the bottom 4 of RLCS, you will have probably the 8 best teams in Europe, and you won't have 6 best teams or 7 best teams, and there's like 1 or 2 teams that are kind of like, we got in, and then they're just getting trampled on. It's like always great fun for everyone to watch. So right, that's hands down the fairest way, because you're having consistency. Who's the most best consistent teams rather than having fluke teams? Hey, you go in the RLCS because you're doing well. Sweet. So you got like a good system.
Right. It creates fantastic storylines. As a commentator, part of the thing that we're supposed to do is create storylines. And when you're saying, look at this team, they competed really well in the Challenger Series. They played against the bottom seed. They're now fighting for a chance. You know what? They won. Okay, they now beat that seed. Now they're this newcomer. And you still get that underdog story. This team proved themselves in the Challenger Series. They're still battling up. They still have to prove themselves against the other top 6 best teams in the world. Can they really compete? They showed that they were able to beat the worst team from last season. Let's see how it goes. And then, like, you still get this incentivized fan base and storyline, and the underdog story is just done in a more, like you said, a more stable environment. It's
the funny thing is, right, it's done, not only is underdog story with the tier 2 league, not only is underdog story more realistic, it's also, in my books, cooler, It gives a chance for the underdog teams to grow a fan base because it lasts longer, and it's healthier. Because right, let's say a team out of nowhere, they're like a ranked 16 team kind of thing. Like they go through the open bracket, right? They get into tier 2 league. Everyone's like, whoa, who are these guys? Didn't know they were going to get into tier 2 league. But they were like, they wouldn't have got into RLCS because they're just not that good. But they are good enough to get into the tier 2 league right at the bottom. But then they're like, okay, we got this. They got this drive. They keep playing and playing. And they suddenly end up in like the top 4 of the tier 2 league. And they've just come out of nowhere, kind of like leftovers, right? Then they're like, they qualify. They get into RLCS. Like, what is going on with this team? And they've spent that entire tier 2 league building up a fan base. And now they've got a huge fan base going into RLCS. And then they could do well from there. That's much more realistic than a team just like playing flip side and happen to win. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
Right. And it's also one of those things too. Like you want to talk about things being realistic. Like as like I have buddies that, no offense to them, I love you guys. They suck. They're terrible at Rocket League. Not saying I'm good by any means, but compared to me, they're bad, and that's saying something. So with these guys playing, like they watch the pros and their minds are blown. They're like, how is that even possible? And I'm like, you know, man, play another 4,000 hours and you too can do that. You know, like it's one of those things that you want to talk about realistic. When you have this tier 2 team, it's also something that's more relatable. It inspires these players that maybe not as good because it's something that's somewhat within their reach. And we talk about all these huge sign-up numbers. I mean, we're talking 6,000 teams. Roughly about 1,000 of them really stand a chance, you know? And that's not to be mean. It's just the player base is so big that there's only a select few that are really that good, like really, really good. That's part of the RLCS is to be the best. And you can only have so many best players. So when you have this relegation system as well in place, you're now inspiring a whole different type of fan base to play in this tier 2 system. It just funnels it in a healthier environment. You're basically weeding out all this problem of, okay, everybody stands a chance. Well, no, I hate to break it to you, man. No, you don't. But in this tier 2 league, yeah, you do. You actually have a pretty good chance. And now you get exposure and the things that you really want, to where in RLCS, in this tier 1 system that we're talking about now, you really wouldn't. Like, I'm sorry, but if you've ever played against the best teams in the world, it's not pretty. It's a whole different level of gameplay. But in the tier 2 team, you know what? You're going to get a taste of it. It's going to allow you to ease your way into it. It's going to be a little bit easier, but it's still difficult. And if you can prove yourself here, you know what? Yes, then you have a chance to prove yourself elsewhere. But to inspire this younger age to say, like, if I keep hard, you know what? I can get here. It's creating steps. It's the same thing as like watching every major sport in the world. If I watch the NFL, I know from a kid starting up, I watched, you know, for me it was Brett Favre. Brett Favre is one of the best quarterbacks in the world. Was the best quarterback in the world. Still the gunslinger. Like, he started with my football team as the first year, like when I was born. And I grew up with this name in my household, and it inspired me. Like, I want to play football as a kid. So I played football pretending to be this guy. I idolized him. And then I realized, like, as soon as I got, you know what, I had to play in Pop Warner, I had to play in high school, I had to play in college, and then I could get to the NFL. I knew direct steps of what I had to do. There was no questions asked. I knew exactly my path to become a pro football player. And then I realized I sucked at football and never tried it again. But I was inspired by these idols that I had. And that's what this system does, is it really shows and it separates the tier of player. It makes people like Doomsee like, holy shit, this guy is really that good. It adds different classifications to what you're doing, and it inspires the younger players that we want to keep inspiring so Rocket League sticks around for a really long time, to keep practicing, to keep playing, to really keep at it, because they realize that next step is actually a little bit more achievable. Like, it makes it within your grasp, rather than, okay, these guys are really damn good, there's no way I can ever compete with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's demoralizing in a way, right? Let's say you wanted to be a pro footballer and the only way to do it is to literally play in the NFL. So you have to play the best NFL teams to get in. And you're just like, well, how am I supposed to do this? And you just like, we're just getting destroyed. And you're like, well, this is like silly. I want to play with someone a little bit worse. It's like, well, yeah, you can. Here's a 2-2 league now. Whereas now so if anything, this will probably increase like sign-up numbers, because the people that are signing up for RLCS or don't think they should, because they're just like, well, I'm not going to get anywhere. They'll be like, hey, tier 2, maybe have a shot. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Much better.
Now, as a whole, we've kind of talked about like why we think auto quals and like relegation kind of style is beneficial, but there's also things that I think that you have mentioned that you wish kind of got tuned up, and there's specific reasons as to why. And they kind of go hand in hand with what we just talked about consistency and stability and all that other kind of stuff. And one of your biggest qualms was some of the rule sets, one of those being the difference between head-to-head tiebreakers versus win percentage. If you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so at the moment, how it works is in RLCS, if you have two teams tied or 3 teams or whatever, it goes by head-to-head. So, for example, Flipside and Leftovers, right? Leftovers beat Flipside, even though they had the same series wins, so they went ahead. Whereas, if what I'm suggesting and what I think is fairer is instead of the first criteria being head-to-head, is it goes by win percentage, because I think if you're doing a league, it's basically saying, all right, who is the best teams or who's performing the best this league, and just because I think, in my opinion, just because you've beaten, you've won a series against a team that you're tied with in series wins, I don't think that means you're a better team. I just think it means you beat them, because you know how some teams like do well against certain teams because of matching play styles. Like, for example, Mocket kept beating Flipside over and over again for some reason, yet Flipside were doing all right against other teams. It doesn't necessarily mean that Mocket was better than Flipside. It was just kind of like the matching play styles. So Leftovers, right, they had 52%, I think, 52% win rate, and yet Flipside had like 55 or something. They were better. And I think having a win percentage shows you're consistently performing better throughout the league against every other team. And I think that's a better indication of who's a better team than just you beat the team that you were tied with in the series.
Do you think that changes, though, the competitive aspect? Because there are certain teams that purposely build rosters around beating the world champions. You see it in every sport. Like, we're gonna build a team to beat this year's meta per se. And there are certain times where, yes, you can compete with the rest, and you can hold your own, stats wise and as well as record wise. But when it comes down to it, I beat the team that I'm tied with, and therefore, when it comes down to it, if you think about it, in the very end, the World Championships, it's not about the record. It's about who wins over who's winning that prize money. And that's where I think a lot of it does come in. Do you think that is going to change anything, or do you think that is justifiable in their reasoning?
I think if it was I think it's because it becomes a tournament is the reason why. That argument makes sense in a tournament setting. But in a league setting, I think it's still, even if you did beat the world champions or whatever, it doesn't mean you're better than the world champions, like in a league, because it's if you've done pretty poorly comparatively to the team you just beat against the other teams, like, are you better? Like, I don't think so. I think it's a better showcase of your raw skill as a team if you compare your results against every team rather than just one team you beat. It's kind of like it's similar to like how power rankings sort of work. You don't, just because you beat a team that, like, let's say a team's ranked number 1 and you beat them, so are you now ranked number 1? Well, no, because you didn't do as well against the other teams. If you did do as well against the other teams, then sure, yeah, you go with the number 1 team, because you're doing well against everyone.
Which is funny, because even I would say no, because you got to do it more than 1 week. Like, you want consistency in it. Like, you want to show that you beat them. Like, I'm the same way. Like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm trying to make you think, Doomsee.
Yeah.
All right?
I know.
Get out of here. Also, I've got a question for you. Yeah, and this one is going to come from somebody in chat. Now, I already have an opinion on this. It was part of the reason why it was changed and the reason why I like it. But there's talks about best of 5 series versus a series of 5 from Tylacto in chat. Do you have a preference between a series of 5 and a best of 5? I personally prefer best of 5. And I think Cloudfield already answered it in chat. To me, even though it is quote-unquote less fair, to me, I think if a team 3-0s you, why should they have to play all 5 games? It's a waste of their time. We don't need to see Selfless get 1-4 every single week like we did in Season 2. Everybody knows what the result. It's the same thing in Magic.
Sorry, go on.
No, you're good.
Okay. So I was going to say, okay, right. If you're doing head-to-head tiebreaker, just do best of, right? Because it makes sense. Because if you go 3-0 up, you're not going to then win the head-to-head, because if you're 3-0 down, so you're not going to win the head-to-head because you can't get more than 2 games. If, however, you switch to win percentage, then yes, do a series, because then, let's say you're 3-0 down, but if you get those 2 games, even though you lost that series, you can still potentially go up the rank or whatever, because of your win percentage would be slightly better. So
at the same time, like, shouldn't we, if you're doing win percentage and I, in a best of series, beat you sooner than other teams, technically doesn't that mean I'm a better team?
no.
If
I mean,
okay, so you and I'm team A, you're team B, and we're playing team C. I beat team C in a 3-0, and you beat them 3-2. Technically, I'm the better team, right?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Boom, got him.
It's so difficult, but I think like maybe, I mean, again, and that's the head-to-head thing, isn't it? I think in that scenario, maybe you were better, but that's the thing. Like in a series, right? Let's say the team that you just 3-0'd, right? And you're saying you're better because you did it. If you played 2 more games, would you win the next 2, or would they win the next 2 and get 3-2?
That's the point. In competitive Rocket League, it doesn't matter. That's too many what ifs, and that's the whole point. Is there's so much speculation about what if this happens, what happens. The point is it didn't. I proved that I won when it mattered most, and that's all that it takes. And I think that's part of the reason why they go the route they is. And even if you do a best of series, you can do average of games. I think they do take that into account. Based upon the series, they do average out whether it's a team of so many, whether they go the full 5 or the full 3. It is averaged. Cloudfield, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong.
Wait, you mean for wimps?
For like head to head, determining like the head to head and stuff, they do take an average in the series.
Oh, because is it head to head? No, but it's head to head in series. You don't have to average anything.
Cloud, please respond.
Yeah, it's not head to head win percentage. It's just like if you have 3 teams head to head, right? It's just who beat who more often.
Right. Right, and it simplifies it, but when it comes down, like if it does come to tiebreakers and then win percentage does get involved, everything is averaged out.
Okay.
That way it doesn't matter if it's 3-2 or 3-0.
This leads on to an X argument, well, win percentage is stupid. Because it's head to reason tiny. Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
So win percentage, that's great and all, right? But you know what's better than win percentage?
Game differential. Yeah.
Oh, that's I can a good read. One, isn't it?
Yeah. Tell us why, dude. Tell us why game differential is a good one.
So with win percentage, right? If you're above 50%, if you play more games, despite having the same game differential, your win percentage is lower. So it's unfair. It's unfair if you say if you 3-0 teams, but then you get 3-0'd. Rather than 3-2ing teams and losing 3-2. Like, it's kind of the same thing. Game differential can be exactly the same, but your win percentage could be different just because of the number of games you played. So I'm suggesting do a game differential like they do in the Premiership or like pretty much every damn sport, so that it doesn't matter how many games you played. Because if you're doing best of series, you can play 3 games or you can play 5 games or 4 games, and that makes a difference, even though the game differential could be the same. So if you do game differential, it doesn't matter how many games you play. It's just like the difference of your wins and your losses. And I think that's the fairest way to do it.
Yeah. I'm curious if there's any situation ever to where purposely losing will benefit you.
I was working this out, and I spent like a good 2 hours because I was remember doing this initial argument ages ago.
Right.
Didn't, because it did. It very much did in RLCS season 2 because it flipped and it was just, like ruckus. That's a long side, but it's stupid. But this season, because it's still doing the head-to-head between more than 2 teams tied, it doesn't. There's never a situation actually where you do need to, where you could just lose a game to quickly end it, so you get less games. Because I mean, if you're like 2-0 down, you're like, oh, we'll just lose 3-0, rather than try to get 2 games and then end up losing 3-2 anyway, and then it's always better to win a game, isn't it? So that's fine. Oh, that would be really bad. That would be really bad if that was the case.
Yeah. And that's something like all the things that we're discussing are suggestions, ideas, things that can be considered when coming about rule changes. Like, obviously, the RLCS is always a work in progress. They're always trying to make it better for the scene and the environment. So when we discuss these things, it's not because we think we know it all, and even though someone may think that, we're just offering suggestions and explaining ideas and theologies about things that could be considered going forward. Other things that we've also talked about and things that you discussed in that post as well, that instead of using auto qualifiers, we could also use a point system over many tournaments or lands to determine league spots. I personally really like this idea. It's what CSGO does, but I think it'd be super cool that there's tons of lands throughout the United States and Europe where a bunch of fans can show up and watch and pertain, and the teams that really make their way to those lands then earn points depending on the severity of them, and then with those points accumulated, the ones with the most points out of the top 8 then get into the LAN environment or a league play system. I think that would be super cool. I think you would see fan bases really explode. I think you would really get the environment that we see in professional sports or in sports that involve kicking a ball or hitting a ball around. I think you would get that crowd size as well when it came to Rocket League. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think this system can work. It just, at the moment, it needs loads more official tournaments, and it needs
a foundation. It needs a big foundation for that to happen.
Yeah, it needs that's a lot more work than just doing another league, to us. You're gonna need a lot of lands. You're gonna need a lot of official, because it's got to be official. You can't just throw oh yeah, this tournament now has points that will qualify for RLCS. You know what I mean? It's got actual proper official stuff, and that's a lot more investment, to be honest, as well. So. It could work, but it's maybe probably a more in the future, and I don't know.
Right. So for those that don't understand how CS:GO does it, yeah, basically anytime that you do a LAN that has expectations to be part of the official, league or whatever it is, there's certain rules, classifications, and I guess it's like a quality control kind of concept where it has to live up to certain standards in order for it to be considered us. So when Twitch, Sinex, whoever is involved in putting in a live event or a local event for people who want to attend, there are certain things that have to be done to a certain speculation. I have to make sure that this amount of people can be catered to. This stuff needs to be handled. It's a lot of business stuff behind the scenes, a lot of monetary things that come into play about hiring staff, making sure that the stage is set up, making sure production goes well. There's certain quality control that has to be handled first before that's even considered. And like Doomsee said, that is a ton of money that gets involved. It's a lot of man hours. That's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So as cool as that would be, I don't think that's in our cards yet, unfortunately, but maybe in time. Maybe that's what they're testing PAX Souths and South by Southwest and all that stuff for. Maybe they're seeing if the appeal for the fan base is there. We don't know. I hope so. I think that'd be cool. But you never know. I mean, Insomnia was pretty slick. I mean, you guys had a 10K prize pool there.
Well, that was nice, wasn't it? Because think about Insomnia, it was great, but the only two known teams really was us and Diffused. So you'd have to.
Which was a troll name to beat you guys. So.
Yeah, what the hell was that? It was 3-0. Yeah, whatever. 3-0 and 3-1 then, and then we do it. They stepped up though in their defense.
They're good. They're good. So are you guys. Yeah. It was fun to watch.
It was absolutely fantastic finals. To be honest.
Yeah, we were talking to the Twitch staff that was there and stuff. And they're like, how the heck does the secondary stage have the biggest crowd with the most cheering and it's all that kind of stuff? It's because it's Rocket League. Hello, I
know, right? Why is no one listening?
Yeah, hello.
It's great.
So you want it? We're pretty sweet. Pay attention to us. Let me love you. Now, to kind of wrap up the key points aspect, everyone who is a fan of Rocket League sports wants the esports scene to be as successful as possible. That's a given. Players, casters, commentators, people involved, the fans, the staff behind the scenes, everybody involved wants it to be massive. So it's one of those things that if we want it to be big, then why is stuff like this not being discussed? When you talk about success, you're talking lots of viewers, big sponsors, huge prize pools, big salaries for the people playing, house orgs, players, coaches, managers, the whole nine. So how do we go about obtaining that? What steps do you think we need to take to make sure that's possible?
Well, firstly, I think the foundation of any popular sport or esport, I think it's just is the power of the people, so the viewers. So I think the first thing is to get as many viewers as possible, have an actual interest in it, because that will thrive everything. Because at the end of the day, that was what drives everything. So if you have lots of viewers, you'll have more interest from sponsorships. You'll have more interest from orgs because they want the name out there, and then that will drive more money into the scene. The scene then has more money to add to prize pools. The whole thing just kind of feeds each other, and it all stems because viewership's growing and growing, and viewership is growing already. It's pretty good, but I guess the first question is, how do you get more viewers? There's quite a few things. The advertising was a massive thing. I mean, the esport button that came and it like doubled the. I mean, the first day it came on, it went to like 55K or something from like 20K, but then it kind of stems to like 30K now. It was nuts.
Yeah, we were sitting in the studio or whatever, and we're like, all right, esports buttons live for the first time. We're like, okay, that's cool. We get into like game 2, 3, and like, where are we at? And like, we're in pre-roll and we're at 37,000. We're like, what? Are you serious? And for those that don't know, League play last season averaged about 8 to 14,000 at its peak. This season we don't drop really below 25,000. It's nuts. It's pretty nuts.
Well, I say, because everywhere, if you just go everywhere you go, like when you go to gaming like conventions or you're just going to tech places, right? People who don't know Rocket League esports, when they watch it for the first time, every single person basically says, I could really get into this. This is really cool. They just sit down and watch, and they're like, "This is pretty good." And like, I think it's a new demographic we're hitting, because I think it's people who aren't so much into esports, like League of Legends, Dota, CS:GO, and stuff. That maybe we can really hook them into Rocket League because it's so easy to get, and it's most like sport. And I think that's why the advertising is so important, because there are so many people out there who just don't really realize about this scene. And if you just hook them in and go, or just tell them, like, let them know that there is this scene here, they'll give it a shot, and they'll be like, oh, this is great. The amount of people, they just love it. It's why, like, the Rocket League, like Insomnia always saying, that the crowd were loving it, because you just look back, there's some Rocket League, and you see some cars, and it's just like, all right, let's give this a shot. And they're just like watching it. It's great, and it's so easy to get into. Everyone's cheering. It's like it's fantastic, and that's
very very accessible. It's like, a fantastic branch in between the casuals and the hardcore, because we definitely have our hardcore fans and stuff. But then you also have people like my sister, who originally watched to support me, and then she heard the team name We Dem Girls, and she's like, oh, it's an all-girls team, I'll support them. And then I'm like, yeah, they're all dudes. Not at all. And now she doesn't care. And now she supports Northern Gaming every single week, simply because of the original fan base. It's easy. She's a soccer player, has been her whole life. Sat down, was like, yeah, I get this, I can get involved, and now I follow the scene. And it's that demographic that I think we really have a chance of why Rocket League could be so big. I mean, that's why people at ESPN are really excited about it, is because the accessibility is easy. It's a really easy way for them to branch that gap of people who think, well, esports aren't sports, and people that are willing to give it a shot. It's really cool stuff.
Absolutely. I think I want to touch on another thing about viewership.
Oh, you touch it.
So I'll touch it good. So not only the first step is advertising, right? That's always needs to be as advertiser friendly as possible. Just keep going nuts on the advertising. And the second thing, I think this is quite important, and it's very rarely discussed actually. I think it's just the player stories. I think at the moment, because Rocket League is very, very online heavy, there's very few LANs, and if there are, they're not really like proper LANs, like officially, like for the RLCS, you know what I mean? So I think at the moment people are they try to get attached like a car, and they don't really see the person behind it. So when you think of Cooksey, right, you think Batmobile kind of thing, but you don't think Cooksey's face. You don't think Cooksey as a person, who he is, like his personality and like just what he's like. So, and I think that is a key part of adding more viewers, because if it's so much easier to be attached to a person, because it's a person. So if you throw more limelight, so for RLCS, for example, throw more limelight on the players. Try to get the camera showing them as much as possible. Get as many bring their personality to the table as much as you can, and then you'll see viewers starting to get attached to the person rather than like their car, which is just a lot harder, and that will help drive more interest in the scene. And that's what Insomnia did really well, I think. Actually, they had the player cam constantly through the entire game. They had a camera in the corner, and it either showed one team, the other team, or any of the 6 players, and it was perfect. So whenever a goal was scored, it would show the team that scored, and they're just like, like whether it's Scrabble or us or whatever, we're just like, cheering.
Right.
And it was like, this is great. Like you can see what that goal meant to these players, and it just it's so much easier to relate to, and you just get attached so much easier. And I think that is very underrated, and I think that definitely is something that needs to be done way more.
Yep. You see, I mean, you see different stuff like that. I forget which week it was. I think it was Halcyon or was it Lemon Puppy? I forget, but it was him and Pluto, and they actually had player cams of those two players live during the games for the RLCS online. It wasn't even at LAN, which is really cool. So they are trying to implement little things like that here and there, and I think that's part of the reason why is you want to become fans of the person. You know, it's something that resonates with you. It's something that you can relate to, like you stated. The issue is we got to find a way to convince these players who maybe may be a little bit more shy, whatever, to work on that ability to do interviews and be more personable and stuff like that. It's not easy. It's something that that's something that the RLCS should do. Maybe they should coach these kids on how to interact with that, because sometimes it's not easy. It's tough to be in front of an audience of 40, 50,000. You know, it's not the least nervous thing you've ever done. It's different. So Cloud even says it in chat, you know, it's one of those things that quote, if I can find it, quote, we'd love to have more player stories, just need the players to be more open to interviews, streaming, and content creation. Which is true. I mean, it's one of those things that you have to be willing to do it, and it's nothing that we can force you to do, but understand why it's beneficial. You build that fan base for yourself, they're following you no matter what team you go on.
Yeah, I understand the interview section. I guess this is, I should have clarified this or like led onto it. It's one of the reasons why I think LANs should be more important, or like there should be more LANs, sorry, because people, you actually have cameras and you can see these players in person, and LANs they triple viewership of online tournaments for Rocket League. It's so much. Right. It's so much easier to watch, and it brings in so many more viewers. So, and that doesn't require any extra experience or personality from the players, because at RLCS, right, there's always a camera watching the players. It's up to the production staff whether they're putting that camera on the screen, so it doesn't affect the players in any way by having a camera in the corner non-stop throughout the entire RLCS stream of showing whatever player. Whereas at the moment it's sort of like every 6th goal or whatever in season 2, it was like there's a camera pops in and it slides away and it's gone for like the next 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever. Whereas if you just have it in the corner, it doesn't take any extra effort from the players because they're just playing and there's always a camera showing them anyway. There's always a camera filming them anyway.
I think that was the thing I missed most between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 was fantastic for player reactions. They were really, really there. Season 2 was pretty lacking. And I forget the reasoning why. There was something going on regarding that. That either A, I don't know if I can say publicly, or B, I don't know the exact details, so I'm not going to anyway, because I don't want to say something that could be wrong or misconstrued. So, got to be careful of that. But yeah, hopefully we see a lot more player reactions. If you guys aren't aware, the next LAN is coming up. It is going to be June 2nd to the 4th. It's the first weekend in June. It's going to be awesome. OCE is going to be there. Make sure you guys check that out. That'll be at the Wiltern in Los Angeles. Tickets are available, so make sure you guys go check those out if possible for you to go, because it's going to be awesome. Come meet people like myself there. Hopefully Doomsee will be there. Doomsee, will you be there? Please be there.
What, in LAN?
LAN, please?
I'm afraid not.
No, why? Come on.
It's way too expensive.
Hashtag get Doomsee to LAN. I'm gonna crowdfund it. We'll find a way, man. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe.
I'd love to. I want to see Snasky live.
Right?
Mate, if he won, I'd pull a Johnny Boy. Well, he was their manager. He has an excuse. But
run on stage and kiss him.
Leg up stage. Snasky!
So everybody needs a fangirl, or fanboy in this case. So why not? Cool. But big key points. Any last key points you wanted to touch on before we move into the next one, where is catering for the casuals?
I think it's fine. I think we've gone over as much as we can. Oh yeah, one thing. Get rid of mid-season mayhem. That's another thing. I think that's a bit pointless. But it's quite fun in a way. But at the end of the day, if it's in the middle of RLCS esports, it's kind of no one really. You can just look at the viewership. It crumbles to like 10,000 or something compared to 25 or whatever. Like people don't really.
So I think mid-season mayhem definitely has its place. I think it's cool. It's for them to showcase other things. Like, I understand their concept of it. I can understand as well, like, if you're the big focus of the RLCS is the professional esports scene, all that kind of stuff, and putting in this funny, goofy game mode in the middle as like a bye week for everybody kind of throws things off. It's really hard to follow. I think the biggest thing we get in chat during those weekends is, wait, does this count for league play? and it's confusing. And that's the last thing we want to do, is we want to confuse the viewers. So it could be one of those things that you save like at the end of the season, in between like the break for LAN. Like we have a 3-week break coming up after this weekend. That could be a good time for it. Or they could change the concept of what it is, you know, something to make it clear and understand. I don't know. There's something that'd be done, but I know a lot of pro players agree with it. The viewership is a little bit lower during that time because people want to see their best players play at the absolute peak performance, and it's hard to do that when the ball's a square or really bouncy and stuff. So it's different. Yeah. It's interesting to see what players do when it comes to like power-ups and stuff in Rumble. Like what some pros can do with Rumble is unbelievable, but it's one of those things that there's other things in mind. But if people do have suggestions, feedback, whatever it is, please let people know, other than just stating, like, I guess this is a perfect example for you, Doomsee. Off the top of your head, is there anything that you would like to see in place of it?
Okay, so there's 2 ways you can do it, right? You could not have that. Oh, actually, yeah, I didn't even touch on this at all. Okay, so this might go on a bit longer. So what you could do, right, is you take out the mid-season mayhem, and if you don't have an open bracket because of our suggestion of the Tier 2 league, you have two free weeks, right? What you can do is you can take the money from the mid-season mayhem and put that into having 2 extra teams. So you have 10 teams in the league, and you have 2 extra weeks. So you have more. So you're not having to like cram your casting in as like crazy, because you can now spread it over 2 extra weeks. So you could do that way, or you can just replace the mid-season mayhem with something like an all-star event, where instead of it being, because people like watching Rumble was like it was fun at first, but like players don't really like it anymore, and viewership obviously shows that they don't really care for it too much. So if you have just standard Rocket League, it's just, you know, the raw Rocket League, which is what people want, but you have an all-star event, so you have like the best European players or whatever, and they like draft their all-stars or something like that. So you have like different teams, so it's people interested, like, oh, what these 2 teams are going to be, but it's like it's still the best players playing raw Rocket League with each other. So that could work as well.
Yeah, I think you and I discussed off screen, talking about a draft tournament, to where you get the captains of each team. So the teams that you guys can cheer for, or the players that you guys can cheer for in league play. I think it'd be really cool to have them all captain, and then they have to draft players that aren't on their current roster and play against each other. Yeah. So you get people like, you got Remco, Cookser, and Snasky playing together or something. You know, I think that'd be really cool. People are going to want to see how these players compete with each other. And that'd be nuts. Plus, it allows the personality to really show. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So there's 2 different routes you can do now.
Yeah. A couple things. You never know. Who knows what we'll see in the future. Anything else? Otherwise, we're going to move on to catering to the casual audience.
I think that goes into my last point, really. So,
Don't lose me.
Nah, it's right. I'm just looking over. I wrote a lot, just to let you know. I wrote a damn lot. Okay, I'm just reading that bit. Oh, okay. So I made one more point.
Last one, promise.
Last one. Okay, last one. I'll make this really quick, right? And I think this will lead well into your casual audience. This is why I was like, should we wait to end or whatever? Anyway, so I think a big like, I don't know, like not a problem, but like, I think at the moment Psyonix have like this. They love open brackets, right? They I don't know why, they just love open brackets, and I think like. I know they don't. In my thoughts, I don't think they love this game, but I don't know if they're that happy about seeing it change so much, because they just like they kind of like where it is, because they're an indie company after all, so they don't really like it's if your game explodes, it's a bit like a shock to the system. So I don't think they have necessarily the expertise or the experience in dealing with a game that big, because they're an indie company. So I think it's just. I don't know. Maybe this is a plea to Psyonix, like to Psyonix watching, just like let us help you. Like take our suggestions, right? But I think just like don't be afraid to just let the game grow and change and the esport, because you do great in like the game itself. Like whenever community suggestions come about, you know, you're always on board to, you know, make the changes. Like most of the changes that happen is because communities have been like, you know, calling for it. But I just think with esports, there's always like some little stunt. I think just like let it breathe, let it grow free, and like yeah, just.
Do you have any examples?
You don't know what's gonna happen.
Do you have anything like specific things that you can? So like, you talk about how the community has helped shape this game, and I assume you're talking about like game modes that come out, and like to my knowledge, the whole reason Drop Shot came to be is because people demanded like a volleyball mode and then like a boat like car mode or whatever. And it was, to me, in my opinion, Drop Shot is the best custom game mode we've had. It is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. And it's a perfect combination of what the community asked for. Constant updates regarding like certain maps and stuff like that. Like Neo Tokyo got changed because of the community feedback. You know, now it's going back to the drawing board, and it's going to be released as just a standard. So in that kind of concept, what do you think specifically, if you can, regarding, I guess, the pro scene, the esports scene, the esports side? Because this will lead perfectly into catering for the casuals. Esports technically isn't for casuals in the aspect of play.
Right. So I think the biggest example is literally everything we've just been saying today. Everything we said today isn't new. We've been saying it since like season 1. See, like, after season 1 was over, we're like, yeah, that was good, but I think open brackets are getting a bit silly now, and I think like it'd be good to have like another league, etc. Auto calls, because we're just like looking at what other esports were doing, and they've obviously spent years and years like perfecting or making their scene as good as possible. So like learn from them. So I think everything we just said is perfect examples of what I mean by letting it grow. Because if you're not making these changes, then that's the thing, isn't it? I think that's the big thing. I think the change in the game, like for the game itself, you know, like game modes, bug improvements, all that stuff, is so much more than any changes that have happened to the esports scene. It's like the biggest changes that have happened is like the prize pool, but that's just like, well, more is better kind of thing, like as in terms of from an outside perspective, and then like a couple of like rules in the system, and then they got rid of like it's very like it's these little tidbits where it's kind of rules rather than like the format. They haven't changed any of the format. It's like they had like the Q1 Q2 point system, and they're like, that's a bit silly, so they got rid of that, which is great. But it's like I don't know. It's just very small little rules rather than the format, and I think maybe it's just like it's the next step, you know. It's because Rocket League's at this tipping point. I think. Well, it's at this point where it's like it can really take off now. Like every viewership and like orgs are getting there, and things are getting quite like nice now, where you can take it to the next level. And if you don't improve it, if you don't take the next steps, then nothing's going to really change too much.
Because I do think this is really important, I want to counter it in a sense. From Psyonix's side, you talk about they're an indie company, they're very small, they're very comfortable and stuff. I think they understand that their game was kind of a beautiful mistake in Rocket League getting the publicity that it has. I don't think anybody expected this game to blow up in the sense that it did, especially someone like you who was a SARP vet. You know, I don't think any of you guys really expected the game to get to this size, to this magnitude. And I think part of the hesitation from Psyonix has to do with the fact that it's their baby, man. Like, it's the thing that they put 6+ years into development into, and because of that, I think they as a company, from what it feels like, and this is just from my perspective and from what I've seen, it feels like they will always put their biggest player base into account first, always, which is the casual fan base. Because the RLCS, as we'll get into next, isn't for the casual audience, because most players aren't good enough to play at that, and that's not to be insulting, it's just how it is. Esports are made for professional players. That the casual fan base is always going to be the focus, and I think that's why the esport has become more of a side project rather than in places like League of Legends and CSGO and everything else that have been around for so very long, to where the esports can now be the focus because the game is already stable. The focus in League of Legends, the focus in CSGO, the focus in Dota has always been the esport competitive side. With Rocket League, I don't think Psyonix has that mentality.
Yeah, but I think as that's fair. I think, like, you know, as a business sense, you appeal to your you know, whoever has the most, like, you're targeting the biggest audience, and more people play the game than watch it. But what these whole esports suggestions isn't taking anything away from the casual. You're just literally adding to what you've already got. And I think that's what not, I don't know if Silex think that. I don't know if Silex and Twitch think that at all, but like I know a lot of people, like audience viewers or just like players of the game, think, because there's so many times you know, they just have this like mindset that, you know, making these changes about, you know, getting rid of open bracket or like having a tier 2 league or whatever is unfair to the people that maybe aren't good enough, or the more casual players. And that's just not true at all. You're literally just adding to the pro scene. Like with the casuals, like, great, they've got like so much going on. But I think at the moment the pros is a bit like, I mean, we've got like obviously a lot going on, but it's just like there's so much room for improvement there.
Sorry, chat's triggering me because they don't understand what to talk about. Love you, chat, but come on. Anyway.
Overwatch. Yeah, that's massive. It's like,
yeah, the only reason Overwatch has a I'm gonna rant about Overwatch for just a second here, and this is totally off topic, but Overwatch is the most boring esport to watch, period. Why would you ever watch Overwatch when you can watch CS:GO? The only reason why Overwatch has an esport right now is because Blizzard put millions of dollars into it and the orgs got involved. That's the only reason, is because of the name Blizzard that it carries. Period. That's it. The spectator client is garbage. Watching it is boring as crap. It's terrible. Simple as that. Done.
Yeah. Busted.
Thank you. All right. Topic 2. Back to me not being upset. Everything's great, guys. I hate Overwatch. So boring. Anyway. Whew. Number 2, catering to the casuals, and this carries over perfectly. So obviously, and from what it seems like, is that Sonics wants to keep the casual audience intact and a part of this, but in me, esports is not for the casual competition in the sense of playing. The whole point to me for esports is to inspire other people and to showcase the talent that this game really, really takes. And when you have 24 million copies or whatever sold, or whatever it is, or 30 million, like an absurd amount of people, technically the ones that are grand champ are 0.0 some odd %. It's not many. And those are the players that you need to cater to in the aspect of esports, okay? The whole appeal is the same reason why millions of people watch football / soccer, American football, rugby, etc., is because it is really exciting to watch someone who's really, really good at something do really, really good at something. And that's what the esports is all about. It also inspires this other audience, this younger generation, to keep playing your game. It's bringing in unique viewers. I've seen people watch and like talk in Twitch chat during Rocket League, during the RLCS, and be like, holy crap, what is this? This game's really awesome. I want to play it. They're just watching it because they've never even seen it before and because it's really accessible. And that brings then in more people into that casual viewer base. It keeps the stability of your esport alive by making it bigger. And when you compare it to any other professional sport, like, I understand, and we talked about this earlier, I'm not a pro football player in any sense of the word. It's not going to happen. But I still want to watch the game because it's exciting. I want to prove my worth. I want to try and stand out and all that kind of stuff. But it inspired me as a kid to play. It inspired me to watch, to follow a team, to build this fan base. Because when I talk about a team, the Green Bay Packers, which is Lambeau Field is 5 minutes that way, that is my team. I'm as much as a part of that team as anybody else, even though I never touched a football on that field. I'm a part of it, and that's what we want for Rocket League.
I 100% agree. It's I hope Silex, I understand that, and I'm sure they do, but it's just like it isn't a separation. Like, it brings them together, if anything, having a pro scene and a casual audience. I can't really add much to that, to be honest. You just pretty much nailed everything.
Yeah. I mean, you had a discussion about Timmy in your in your autoquote post. If you want to kind of explain like the concept of of like why it's still okay for people like Timmy.
Well, okay, firstly, not only is it okay, it's better, right? So, you know, our tier 2 league argument, you're literally adding another league for the tier 2 teams. And so Timmy and his friends maybe get destroyed in RLCS because they have to play against Flipside or Northern or whatever. But if there's a tier 2 league, maybe these guys have a shot. And that as we touched on earlier, that's an incentive for these you know, semi-pros or amateur players to qualify for RLCS. They just go through the tier 2 league. So if anything, you're adding to the casuals as well. So you're helping everyone. So I don't really see any downside to everything. Yeah, it's helpful for everyone.
I think a lot of people argue about the concept of how also we're talking about Timmy with a Y, not an I, you guys. Different Timmy. All right. Timmy's a weekend warrior, he's a god, we know it. Simple as that.
Oh, right, yeah.
We'll see him this weekend. But they talk about how the reason why we have so many signups for the RLCS is because people want to say, I competed in the RLCS. And the issue is when you add a relegation system, technically they no longer have that feeling. But I feel like as long as we classify it the right way, like it's still a part of the RLCS. It's just a step holder first.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So people are worried about like that lack of inspiration for other people, but I think when you make the goal they're looking for more in reach, it'll counter that. I don't think you'll have that problem, and I think you agree with that. It's one of those things that,
yeah,
I mean, it's just like every other sport. And I guess my question for you then, to kind of wrap up this kind of topic, because these last two are gonna be really quick. The juicy one was the key points.
Yeah.
If you're to create these leagues and all that kind of stuff in this tier 2 system and everything, I totally forgot what I was gonna say.
Better be an amazing question, though.
It was good. It was really good, and that's why I forgot it. Right? What was I gonna say, chat? Chat, help. What was I gonna say? Esports. What was I just saying? Why did I brain fart so hard?
You have to think about something else, and it might come back to you.
Yeah. Teams, playing and stuff. What were we just talking about?
That's another question, isn't it?
I need to go get medicine again because it's wearing off.
We're talking about incentive for lower ranked teams.
Yeah, and like more obtainable goals, about how they're able to...
It's easier, more realistic for them.
I don't remember. I honestly don't. Also,
while you talk about that, I'll add another point. No, wait, why are you trying to remember it? If you're worried that... Because I know a lot of people want to face like these top teams. Because, like, you know, your average Joe, when's he going to face Flipside? Well, you know, RLCS Open qualifiers, boom. You know, I can play Flipside. And I don't care if I get destroyed, I want to play him. And that's fine and all. But there's also, like, hundreds of tournaments that go on throughout the year that you can enter, where Flipside will enter, you know, Northern will enter, Mocko will enter. You know, enter your G-Finities or your Meta Leagues or whatever, and you can play with them. And I think you've got that, so you don't have to have it for the Open qualifiers for RLCS. You can have RLCS for the pros, and they will still enter the community tournaments. So you've got a win-win still going on for everyone.
I can't think of it. It's over with. But yeah, I agree. It's over. But yeah, I agree. No. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, when you create another league, I mean, it's one more thing that these people are able to watch. I think it really helps grow the scene. A lot of people come and tune in for the RLCS, and our numbers are ecstatic for that. But why don't we have those numbers for community tournaments? I mean, there's still Pro Rocket League going on. The same teams, same players. It's prize pool's not as big, but it's still people are watching the exact same gameplay. And it's rough that we don't have that kind of viewership come out for, you know, your PRLs, your RLCs, your GFins, you know, whatever it is. It's unfortunate.
I think it's because it's an official thing. It happens at every esport. Yeah. Like, if a tournament's not as important because it's not like the main event, then you're not going to have the viewership. Like G-Affinities, they get about they like actually they do all right, to be honest.
They're
They
doing
get
better
like
now.
one and a
Yep.
half. They do like 1,500, sometimes 2,000, like, and they're just like weekly tournaments. Like they're not as. Like, I think it's also like the fact that they're on all the time. You know, you're not going to have everyone like tune in all the time. Whereas when
Right.
it's like RLCS for like a good 2 months, everyone's like, right, RLCS season, and you know everyone's tuning in. Whereas if it's every single week or every day almost, then so you're not going to watch every single day, especially when
And I
it's not
think
like for part of the big picture.
I'm gonna pretend this is what I was gonna ask you, because it works. But
Okay.
do you think that if we do create the second tier, this tier 2 system, that you now then get that fan base because it's official? It's another official RLCS catered thing. Like there's certain qualifications and all that kind of stuff. And now you have this tier 2 for everybody to tune in, and that then branches then back in. I don't think it'll ever hit the same peak that RLCS is, but it's a good baseline, you know?
Yeah, it will do better than every other non-RLCS tournament, especially if it's on like Twitch.tv/Rocket League. It will do very well. It won't like touch on RLCS level viewerships just because the quality of the teams isn't as good.
Right.
But one, the stream, if it's on the official Twitch stream of Rocket League, it will do well. Two, because it's actually an official RLCS tournament and it can lead to RLCS, then that will also drive viewers. And I think, and yeah, you can never expect it to do as well as RLCS, but that will have a big impact in viewership for Rocket League, I think.
People care about the stories. People care about the gravity that it holds, and that's why tier 2 is great. That's why we'll never have a problem with if it does happen, because it's the same thing as like us saying whoever wins this weekend, whoever takes first and second this weekend, is automatically guaranteed to go into season 4. There's a lot of weight behind that. There's a lot of implications for that. And when you say these teams that play really well in this tier 2 relegation system have a chance to be in that tier 1, it's the same concept. Those people are going to play either way. At least now they have a better chance, right?
Yeah.
Could be cool. Could be really cool. But before we wrap up this, we have one thing that I know you and I are both going to be frustrated about. Hopefully I don't turn into like I did with Overwatch. But the most common counter arguments, or the most arguments that we hear from social media, from people, from whatever, this one is all yours. So I'm going to say a common thing that I've read, and these are all from social media, things that I've these are either direct quotes or things that I've said. I'm not saying who said them because it's irrelevant, but you're going to give me your response in hopefully a nice way. Okay?
A nice? Oh, damn it.
Hopefully
Okay,
in a professional way. You can be...
I'll be nice and professional.
Do what you got to say. Okay, number 1. Quote, if a team doesn't play well on that day, then they're not good enough and don't deserve league play. Unquote.
So that's completely untrue. Because, and I state, a team's worth or how good they are isn't defined by one day. Every team in existence, every player has good days and then they have some bad days. Some teams' bad days happen to line up with RLCS, and because of that, they may not go through the open qualifier. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just means, you know, if they've proven they're really good beforehand, it just means they're just like they've been it that day, and it's just that happens. It's a thing that happens, and it shouldn't be why a team has to not play for the next 3-4 months. So they definitely deserve league play. It's just open bracket as a flawed system.
Yeah. To add on to that, there's a reason why we do league play. There's a reason why these teams play over 5 weeks and not just once to get into the playoffs. It's the same thing. So, second one, quote, if you like consistency, then you should play consistent. Surely the consistency to get through an open bracket is necessary to make league play.
This one cracks me up. Okay, so this one, I'll add more to this because it's quite funny. It was because, okay, so, so there's an argument, right, that I'm speaking from a perspective where it's like, I'm mad that I didn't make league play. Sure, I didn't make league play, but the things I'm suggesting makes it harder for me to make RLCS. Let's say I'm an inconsistent player, which a lot of people would agree with. If I'm inconsistent, my best bet is to have an open bracket, because I just got to hope that I have a good day on that bracket, so I get into league play. Whereas if I'm saying I have to go through a whole league to get through, and I'm not consistent, then I'm not going to make it, am I? Because you got to be consistent to actually get to do well in the league. So that argument is just ridiculous, because it's open bracket. Inconsistency is more important, or like inconsistency will help. If you're not a good team to begin with, league play, 2 leagues, promotion, relegation. That helps. That proves consistency, and it's what you define as a better team.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, yep.
Yep.
And the last one before we go to a live Q&A. Bypassing playing teams in open qualifiers doesn't seem fair to me. This is in regards to teams being auto qualified. So if I am a team that gets auto qualified, this player then says bypassing playing teams in open qualifiers doesn't seem fair to me.
Well,
so Doomsee, you played really, really well. You've destroyed your competition. You made it through open bracket. You beat everybody in tier 2. You beat the relegation teams into RLCS. You have played after countless weeks against the top 8 teams in the world, and you've shown that you are the first or second best in your region. So you know what? We're going to reward you with showing you that you get to come back into next season. You know what? That's not fair to me. Why?
Yeah, the fact that I'm trying to like think about why it wouldn't be fair, it shows how like maybe flawed that argument is. It's completely fair because you're proving, if it's a league, you're proving I'm pretty much repeating myself here. If it's a league play, if it's a league system, and you're proving that you're a dominant team or you're a good team because you're playing well consistently, then you should be allowed into the next league play rather than getting potentially punished because you might have a bad day in the next open qualifiers. It's unfair that a potential team that basically just does nothing because they're just not that good can then come in and take over a team that has been performing very well consistently because of one bad day. That is unfair because you're rewarding a team for not being as consistent and not being and not performing as well over the recent weeks or months.
To say it in another way, you both had a fair chance. It's just he qualified for the RLCS and you didn't, so he gets this opportunity. You both went through the open qualifiers, but he performed accordingly. You didn't, and that's why it's fair. You both had the same opportunity to get where he is. It just he did it, you didn't. It's the same thing. You both went and had the same path, but because he performed with his team and is still performing with his team, why, yes, we should definitely reward him, because most teams, I mean, I forget the exact number on it and all this stuff, but if you look at all the teams that have come back from season 1 to 2, 2 to 3, we don't see too many new names. There's a reason for that. And because of that, that's why I think, to wrap everything up, both myself, Doomsee, a lot of the pros, because you said a lot of the stuff came from pros and common understanding in your post, agree along the lines that if we keep seeing these consistent players, why are we making it so tough on them to come back every single time? We want to build fan bases, we want to build the scene, we want to build organizations and sponsors, and the whole reason the esport came to be a thing in the first place was to make this a profitable business. It is a business. And it's tough to do that when you keep changing who to follow. Like, our production team still doesn't know some of the players on some of the teams because they change every season. It's really difficult to follow and pay attention and build fan bases around players, teams, orgs when they keep changing. It's very difficult to follow as a third-party viewer or as someone who is directly involved every single day. So, it's tough. It's real tough. Important, but tough.
Yeah.
So, before we wrap it up with this season, this season's wrapping up pretty close too, but before we wrap it up with this episode of Rocket Talk, number 3, Talk with Doomsee about auto qualifiers, is there any last things you would like to say, Doomsee? Any points that you want to make sure you get off your chest while you have the opportunity, so you don't have to type it in your 140 characters on Twitter?
Oh no, I'm gonna have to anyway. You know I am. I think I've got everything I can think of now.
Oh, fantastic. We appreciate all of you guys being here, everybody watching, everybody listening at home. For those that do miss it, don't forget you can always check out this episode on Gibbs' YouTube, Gibbs000. Kind of branding is that? Or you can watch it and listen to it on every major podcast app out there. But that is it for me. I'm Lawler. Make sure you guys hit me up on social media with any other questions or any other topics you'd like us to discuss. Also, make sure you guys go follow Doomsee at Doomsee with 3 E's at the end on pretty much every social media you can possibly think of.
Except
there...
Twitter is the only one with 3s. Everything else is 2s.
Okay. Why? Who took the other one?
Some guy, like some Arabic guy. He hasn't posted in like since 2012 or something.
You can, if he hasn't posted within the last year, you can possibly get that taken over.
I think I tried, but you know what it's like with any company ever trying to like contact support or whatever and get something done. It's just like.
See, my problem is some chick named Robin has mine, and she's like some school secretary lady or something like that, and she like posts pretty regularly. I'm like, lady, no one cares. Like, no one at school is paying attention to this. I'm so upset, so I can't get Lawler. It sucks.
I am a caster for RLCS. I demand my Twitter handle.
And Robin's just like, school lunch today is, and I'm like, God damn it! Like, can't do it. Either way, thank you guys all for watching. Until next time, that is going to do it for the audio portion. We'll stick around for a live Q&A, so make sure you guys ask the questions. But later.
Peace out.